swing. Republican Congressman from Florida and member of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform and the House Budget Committee, Byron Donalds, is here to weigh in on all of this. Congressman, welcome to the program. Thanks for being here. I want to ask you first, in light of the last live report we just had about the gun reform legislation, which is being discussed on the Hill. Yesterday, Senator Mitt Romney came out and said that he would support raising the age limit to buy an AR-15 from 18 to 21. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat, spearheading these talks, says, as Alexandria mentioned in her report, he thinks if he could get 10 Republicans to agree, they could maybe pass something. Now, the House voted last week along party lines a measure that would confiscate guns temporarily from people deemed a threat by a federal court, along with some other things. You did not vote for this. Is there any gun reform that you would support?
None of this stuff that's being proposed. Look, the reality is if you look at the mass shootings that have occurred, especially the ones in our schools, the people who actually acquired the weaponry went through the federal firearms background check. They passed the checks. I think it's heinous what they did, but they went through the legal process to acquire the weaponry. Number two, raising the age from 18 to 21, what you're really doing is taking away the constitutional rights of 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and 18-year-olds in the United States, the vast majority of which would not even contemplate committing such heinous violence against their fellow man. What we should be looking at are mental health issues, because that is the one constant that you can find between all these shootings, is that there are major mental health components that people in schools and family members and people in the community were aware of for a very long time, and that is what slipped through the cracks.
Okay, so how do you put that into policy? How do you put looking at mental health issues into policy, into something that Congress could vote on? What does that look like?
Well, actually, what that does look like is you have cooperation between federal government, state government, and local government around mental health programming, where young kids or young people can actually get the help that they need, where you can actually ascertain at-risk populations at an earlier level. That's what you do. Some of this stuff is what people talk about with red flag laws, but the problem with red flag laws is that it actually violates your Fifth Amendment protections. Your property is taken from you before you can actually basically address your accusers. So it's taken from you before you're actually allowed to enter into a judicial proceeding. That's a violation of the Fifth Amendment, in my opinion. That's the problem there. But we do understand that there are mental health issues that do exist in the United States. We can actually get to the bottom of this if you actually take a look at funding in these areas, and if you actually also take a look at having real conversations in local communities around these situations. If you look at the shooter in Buffalo, the shooter in Uvalde, it is clear that there were mental health issues that did exist that either were ignored or were not reported appropriately.
Yeah, that is for sure. I want to turn to inflation. The Consumer Price Index came out yesterday, a 40-year high, 8.6% over the previous year. Let's put this graph up on the screen, showing the trajectory of inflation over the past decade. It just keeps going up. And then you look at how much, there it is there, you can see it's really spiking in the last couple of years. And then you look at how much your basic food items are costing now. And one report says if you throw in, gas prices with that, families are paying an extra nearly $500 a month. The president spoke yesterday from Los Angeles and blamed shipping companies, oil companies. He blamed Putin for the millionth time. Should the president of the United States be able to do something more about all of this?
Oh, yeah, he absolutely can, but he doesn't want to reverse course on his agenda. That's why he's quick to blame everybody else. Listen, the president lied the other day in Los Angeles. Yes, oil companies have 9,000 leases, but they can't get the permits from his administration because they're either slow walking the permits, or when the environmentalists sue in federal court, his administration is not defending the permits that they choose to issue. That's one. Number two, if you actually went through the process of making sure we had more pipelines in the United States, that would allow for energy to move more freely, more quickly, more efficiently in the United States. Joe Biden's administration has stopped all of that, starting with the Keystone XL pipeline when he first came into office. So this is directly at his hand. And the last part we already know, his American Rescue Plan created a labor shortage in the United States because he paid people to stay home. Every economist knows this, except the economists on the left who choose not to acknowledge it. And Joe Biden refuses to acknowledge that he screwed up up. He did the wrong thing, and this is his fault, but the American people are paying the price, especially poor Americans who frankly are seeing the largest tax increase in American history through the insipid nature of inflation.
Yeah, Americans are paying the price across the board for just about everything. Let me ask you finally, I want to turn to the January 6th hearings. The Democrats have started this series of hearings last week about the January 6th riot at the Capitol. Is this political theater and an attempt to charge Donald Trump with some kind of a crime, or is there really a goal here, dissecting what happened to prevent it from happening again? Maybe they should have had more security in place. What do you think about this?
It's total political theater. Folks, this is the reason why in the United States, if you're going to have a trial, there has to be a defense so somebody can defend themselves. Because if you just send the prosecution in there with nobody to countermand what the prosecution is saying, they can make anything seem any way. Listen, they cut clips from interviews that were done under oath, and they sensationalize them behind themes, behind music, behind words, etc. It's all political theater. If you want to get down to the facts, the Oversight Committee, which I sit on last May and last June, were actually getting to the facts of Capitol security, the actual intelligence report that was sent from FBI to Capitol Police and the Metropolitan Police Department before January 6th. The fact that President Trump authorized 10,000 National Guard troops on January 4th, and the fact that it is the Speaker of the House who is responsible for security at the Capitol complex. It is not the President of the United States. If the Democrats actually wanted to get to the bottom of everything, you would have Republicans on this committee. They don't want to do that. Their agenda has failed, so they want a political show that was all Hollywood theater. We saw the other night. They had to hire Hollywood theater to put it together.
Yep, they did. It was a highly produced video. Representative Byron Donalds, thank you so much today for your thoughts, sir. Have a good weekend.